You know, how dare you? But I urge people to read the law. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Read the Domestic Partnership Act. The Domestic Partnership Act talks about two people who are not in the same family relationship as people who are not in the same family relationship of people who could not marry because of that. They exclude you from marrying your brother, your sister, your mother, whatever. And the question becomes, why? Now, one of the arguments against incest is the differential in power relationship between parents and children, but that doesn't work for brothers or sisters or adults marrying. I mean, no, I have no idea where they would go with that if pushed, other than say it's icky, how dare you raise it, and nobody's raising it but you guys. That's, I think, would be the argument. Yes?
Question. When you say that it has to be decided by the people, that sounds fine 50 years ago. No one could have foreseen that anyone 50 years ago would have foreseen that people would be debating this issue in a court of law. But one can surely foresee 50 years in the future, or maybe 20 years in the future, as public education indoctrinates the young, what can be amended can be re-amended.
Absolutely.
And so that eventually the society itself will proclaim its own death warrant.
That may be.
Which is maybe what's happening to our modernity. But so there must be some principle higher than just we the people. Even the we the people have to stand on reason.
Absolutely. I'm just saying the people, you have a better chance of the people standing on reason than the political and judicial class. I'm not saying, Bill Mace here, I was on a call the day before Prop 8 passed, and they said, well, what do we say if we win? And I said, what do you mean win? It's round one. It's round one. I mean, you're going to be here virtually every election cycle. And so I agree with you. But my question is, the Nancy Cotts of the world, they're all in. You know where they are. The people, at least, have the ability to listen in their heart to the inclinations of the natural law and through their lived experience, see what is at stake. Is that a thin reed? Yeah, maybe, as modernity continues. Do they have to answer to a higher power? Sure. When I go in to vote, I have as much responsibility as a federal district court judge who's making a decision on these matters. I mean, so I don't think that the outcome is inevitable, unless, of course, the judiciary takes a hold of it, and then you find yourself in precisely the same situation as we are in the abortion debate, which is we can do nothing as a people. I mean, there's nothing clearer in the law than that the people, the vast majority of the people, don't like the current abortion laws. If many states would change them, even states that are very pro-abortion, they would change the laws. They would be, and you would have an opportunity every year to try to make the argument. But when the judicial class steps in and says, "You guys, we'll solve this for you. This is the way it's going to be," until you can get the right. I mean, people yell and scream about how important Supreme Court nominations are in political elections, in presidential elections. They're very important, but they're just one aspect of it. It gets cluttered up with lots of other things. People won't vote for one party for lots of reasons, and they don't consider, the possibility that the person may or may not get a judicial appointment. It may or may not change the balance on the court to be a determinative vote. I personally think it's one of the most important things I do when I vote for a president. So anybody else back there? Yes.
Can you say a little bit about this strange premise? I think they said there was a precedent in Colorado about throwing out a ballot because the people had bad intention or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about the Romer case?
I think that's what
Okay. Well, the Romer case is a very interesting case. And I'm not going to stand here as an expert on it, but I'll tell you what I know. Romer was the governor, and he was sued. The people of the state of Colorado decided that through the initiative process, that all civil rights laws, public accommodation civil rights type laws, employment laws, would be decided at the state level, that they weren't going to go county by county, city by city. And what this meant was essentially those dealing with homosexual rights would be decided that way. In one of the most bizarre cases in constitutional law history, and I think people will say this because Anthony Kennedy, our beloved Anthony Kennedy, wrote the opinion and cited virtually no authority for it. He just thought that this was at once too narrow and too broad, that you were focusing in on one group and disabling them and disadvantaging them by taking this to the state level. And that's the Romer case. I mean, if the two cases that are critical, if this goes up to the United States Supreme Court, are Romer and Lawrence. Lawrence is the case that held that Texas could not criminalize sodomy. It was unconstitutional to do that, overturning Bowers versus Georgia, which had come to just the opposite conclusion about 10 years before. So when people say we can't overrule Roe v. Wade because it's precedent, just say, well, what happened to Bowers? I don't think it was an invidious discrimination case as much as it was Kennedy, and he was the swing votes in these things, didn't like the fact that you had targeted one group of people. Now, our friend Mr. Scalia, and by the way, I have to say that what I've just said is largely the judicial philosophy of Anthony Scalia, which is we shouldn't be encoding in the Constitution the particular views of particular generations about important subjects, because after all, we are a democracy, and people 20 years from now may have different opinions about these, and it's not our job to bind them to our particular views. That's what a democracy is about. But Scalia pointed out that, look, it was a close election. These people aren't powerless. We don't need to protect them. They can go back the next day and try and change it. Leave it to the political process. These are our homosexual fellow citizens are not politically powerless. We know that. They raise more money to oppose Proposition 8 than Proposition 8 proponents raised. Help? Okay. Somebody else? Yes. You knew? Yes.
How much influence do you feel that the biological technology with being able to have donors and in vitro and all of this in regard to reproductive medicine is impacting the call for this same-sexual marriage, in the sense that the desire for their own children and the family?
Yeah. Well, I think it impacts it in this way. I think in a practical way. I have a very good friend, Steve knows him. He's a graduate of St. Mary's. And he and I I don't think we ever saw eye to eye on anything from the time we were 18. He was a classmate of mine. And I had like a 45-minute conversation the other day with him about this very issue on the phone. I have a vineyard, he prunes my vineyard, and I called him up to set a date to have the vineyard pruned, and we got off on the question of same-sex marriage, because I think I told him I was going to give this lecture. One of the arguments that is advanced is this: well, married couples can have assisted reproduction, and in any number of ways. In vitro fertilization, their own sperm and eggs, or they could have their sex surrogates. There's egg donors. Better to have the child have some genes of yours than not all. None. I mean, designer kids. So, to answer your question, in the way in which what passes for argument today, that helped open the door to say, well, if it can be done by some people, why can't it be done by everyone? However, to me, this is the thing that gets under my skin more than anything else.